Hey again, LinkedIn. My name is Nobu Warwick. Today I'm attending the Change Leadership Conference at the Mars Discovery District. I have the pleasure of having one of our keynote speakers, Councillor Holland, with me. Thank you for joining me, Councillor.
Thanks, Nobu. Yeah.
So I want just to chat briefly, and especially for my audience, young people, but just first of all, there's so much going on in Toronto. It's not only the talk of the town, but really the world is our oyster. We have things like Amazon HQ2 coming in, CDL, Sidewalk Labs. Can you give me the outlook for the next 1, 5, 10 years? What is City Council's plan to really leverage this wealth of talent that we have?
That's right. So we're preparing our workforce. That's one aspect of it. Obviously, we are creating the first ever brand for our innovation economy at the City of Toronto.
Yes.
That has never been created before. Obviously with my role, which is the Chief Advocate for the Innovation Economy, that's never been done before at any municipality across Canada.
Really?
So in fact, of having this role, I'm able to leverage and propel the innovation economy and move it forward.
Yeah, so on that note about propelling it, I have a lot of millennial, Gen Z people, really young people that want to be part of this new knowledge economy, want to be part of this fourth industrial revolution.
That's right.
How do we make sure these young people aren't left behind as part of this strategy, as part of this rapid change and transformation?
That's right. So one aspect of that is making sure that our educational institution is preparing them for the workforce and for the innovation economy, right? We're obviously in the fourth industrial revolution, as you mentioned, so the velocity has changed. So we have to make sure that we're picking up pace and that we're preparing our educational institutions for those students. Now, one idea obviously is the experiential learning. That's key. We also know that lifelong learning is part of this change. We know that we call it K to Gray. So it's no longer just students, but will always be students.
Exactly.
So that's
lifelong learners.
Absolutely. So it's a thrilling part of the change and the transformation that's taking part within the educational system. So I think for people that are your age, younger, older, that we're actually changing that environment and making sure that they're prepared for this environment.
Right. And I know that you have this great initiative coming up, and I think it's especially important for young people it's on May 31st. Did you want to talk about it? Yes. Oh, it is tomorrow. Yes, it is tomorrow.
Yes.
Digital Literacy Day in the City of Toronto.
Yeah.
The first one.
The first one ever, so it's our first annual, and this one is to leave no one behind.
Right.
So we know with this velocity of change that about 55% of jobs will be transformed. And we have to make sure that we're skilling up, that we're preparing our workforce for, I would say, we're calling it the new innovation economy, but I just call it the innovation economy because it's already here.
Right.
This is something that we've been dealing with even for the past 5-10 years, and it's at an exponential rate that it's moving forward.
Okay, so how can young people, specifically high schoolers under 26, how can they get involved tomorrow and in the future?
That's right. So there's 190 programs across the city. They can go to my website or the city's website, City of Toronto website. They can find all the information on Digital Literacy Day, and they can find out how they can get involved. Remember, it's one day tomorrow that will start the conversation, and we're going to have this annually, so expect it to be exponential next year.
Yes, and I will definitely stay tuned. Thanks so much for your time, Councillor Holland.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
Hey Rob, thanks for attending Change Leadership 2018. What made you come to the event? What drew you to this event today?
Well, I'm a change practitioner and working on a number of projects that are related to digitization, and so I thought this would be a very fitting event for the types of challenges that I'm faced with in my particular role.
Perfect. And real quick, what in particular stood out for you about today's event?
This morning has been super thought-provoking in terms of the future of work and the way that our workplaces are going to evolve and what that means in terms of organizational readiness for all the companies that we work in.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hey again, LinkedIn. My name is Nobu Warwick. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm at the Change Leadership Conference 2018 at the Mars Discovery District with an honored guest, Dr. Horney, a thought leader, practitioner, longtime practitioner in change, leadership, and management, and also a 20-year plus, if I understand correctly, Navy SEALs operator. Can you briefly speak on that? That's a super interesting background story.
Yeah, the background in terms of my special operations in the Navy, that's the correct term. The umbrella term is special operations that includes SEAL, EOD, diving, etc. So my focus was mostly EOD, which is explosive ordnance disposal,
Right.
and diving. So the majority of my time was basically spent underwater.
And that's a tangible example of volatility. I mean, those things explode, and they can explode at any time.
They do, and it's very tangible in terms of anticipating change as we get into
Yes.
some of the discussion around agility and the agile model that we've talked about.
And Dr. Horney speaks extensively on the VUCA model.
Yes.
Acronym, I think it stands for
It is.
volatility, utility.
I'll help you. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. I used to use the term, prior to that, I used to just talk about turbulence. You know, our world is getting more turbulent and rocky, and then I stumbled across, being a Navy guy,
Right.
I stumbled across an Army term which was created around 2008 by the Army War College, and I said, it said VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. I said, that's pretty good. I think that describes the business environment quite nicely and why we need to be able to be agile as individuals, teams, and organizations.
So specifically for my audience, consists of a lot of millennials,
Yeah.
Gen Zers. This is an issue that's going to confront them in their decades to come with the changing economy, etc. What are your top 3 tips for young people to employ the VUCA model? And yeah,
Well, in
off the top of
terms,
the head.
yeah, actually, it's not an application of the VUCA model itself. That's a framework that the Army came up with.
Yes.
What we do and we teach and we train is around something referred to as the agile model.
Right.
So in a VUCA environment, how do you become agile as
I got you.
an individual, team, or an organization? So the first thing that I would really talk to millennials about and really encourage them is to be very rock solid about anticipating change. Pay attention to trends and patterns, things that are happening, like at this conference, on AI and robotics, etc. That is a wave, that is a trend that is not going to stop. And the reality is, with the expanding gig economy, which many millennials populate the gig economy, and there are many, many platforms that enable freelancers to be able to work and partner with different businesses, that really becoming adept at understanding the best use of that, then they can fulfill their whole passion around the work that they do, not necessarily around one particular company, as baby boomers like myself might have originally preferred.
Yes.
But these days and times, I think that with the growth of the gig economy, with the growth of, by 2019, in the United States, 50% of the work will be getting done by freelancers. And if that's the case, for those millennials to pay close heed to that and equip themselves to be ready.
Right.
Be ready.
So rock solid, agile, other 2 tips. If you were to speak directly to a young person, from your heart, what would you say to them based on your life experience?
Based on my life experience, I'd probably say don't go down some of the paths that I did. But, and part of it is, and the reality is, and it does tie back into versatility and adaptability. Don't necessarily feel like when you come out of college, let's say for example, don't feel like the first job or work that you do has to be so monumental and the be all and end all.
Yeah.
Experiment, test, use an opportunity to be yourself. So I would take some risks and take careful risks, but take risks to be yourself and do things that really energize you and you feel like you're having a contribution.
Right. And last one, what's the one job that is underlooked currently that you think young people should train for, should go for in this changing economy of ours? What's one area or sector that you'd identify as undervalued that young people really should be looking at?
Yeah, and again, I try to give counsel not to think so much about jobs.
Okay.
It really is about how do you prepare yourself for the work that is coming at us, the work that is really being equipped by AI, by robotics, etc. Read as much as you possibly can about AI, about robotics. Understand it. You don't have to be a technologist, but understand it and understand the implications of that for the kind of work that you want to do, and then marry the two together.
So you're saying don't limit yourself to one thing, don't define it, be dynamic in your approach.
Definitely be dynamic and to think beyond job. Think about work. Think about work in multiple settings. Move, get the experience, different countries, different locations, different cultures, etc. That broad exposure is going to equip you to become much more agile in a very turbulent environment.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Doctor.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Hey guys, thanks so much for coming out to Change Leadership 2018. What drew you to the conference? What made you come there?
Would you like to go for it? Well, for me, it was about just finding out what's going outside my box and changing and get some more information so I can hopefully make a big change in terms of where I'm working as well.
Yeah, it was just more to see what experts have to say about it. Like my colleague attended it, so just wanted to get more insight.
And did you get that insight? Did you get value from this morning? What expert advice in particular stood out for you?
50% of the workforce changing? Wow, that just kind of shocked me, right? You think you know, but you seeing it on the screen really brings everything to perspective for you.
I think it's this is giving an opportunity to reflect on it and like what it means for me personally and my organization. And yes, it is coming, but what are we going to do about it? So that's what I think was a takeaway for me.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your time.
Great. Thanks a lot. Cheers, guys.
Thanks so much for attending Change Leadership 2018.
Stand over here. The eye line's better.
On camera. Hey, thanks so much for attending Change Leadership 2018. What initially drew you to the conference? Why did you come?
I was invited last year by Yvonne, and being someone who is constantly operating in a world of change, seeing the disruption in my own profession as a CPA, seeing how the change in the economy, the change in the workplace, the fact that we ourselves have to develop a much wider breadth of skills. This is something that is absolutely valuable. I got so much value last year, and again, it's the connections you make. So not only is it the awesome delivery of the information and insights from the speakers, but it's the valuable connections that you make in your own profession and beyond.
What about the speakers in particular? Any speaker stood out to you? What one piece of advice did you derive from this morning that you would share with people?
I think the standout comment for me was one of the insights given by Nick Horney about you have people in the workplace who are classed as full-time employees who actually want to do other things as well as their day job. They want to show that innovation, they want to show that creativity. And so the challenge for employers is that retention, at the same time allowing those employees to have creativity and innovation, and also about how you categorize and treat your independent contract staff. So if you leave them to the side, as he was referring to, how do you get that diversity of thought, that diversity of problem solving, that diversity of coming to an optimal solution? Because at the end of the day, the only way you can ask an independent contract staff to make a meaningful contribution is if they understand the whole picture, for them to be able to make an informed decision into what's being discussed.
Hey, thanks so much for coming to Change Leadership today.
Thanks for having me.
What drew you to the conference in particular?
Well, initially it was Claudette McGowan from BMO. Claudette's a good friend of mine. I know her very well, and she said she's presenting at this conference. And I looked it up and I actually met some of the organizers, and I was blown away. Last year you had John Maxwell, and I'm a huge John Maxwell fan. I'm a huge into leadership, and I do some leadership coaching myself. And I wanted to see what they would put together, and so far I've been thoroughly impressed.
Amazing. And from this morning session, I know you're going to enjoy the afternoon.
Yeah.
But from this short morning so far, what was your key takeaway? What would you use as advice to coach to? What
I would use is that we're constantly in this method of change, and I think some people think change is something separate from life, I guess, but if you think about it from a humanistic standpoint, you're always changing, you're always growing, you're always evolving. And if you want to stay at the forefront of everything, you have to grow, you have to change, you have to evolve. I used to play in the CFL, and we were always trying to find new techniques of training, new techniques of healing faster, new techniques of running new plays or new systems, right? So that we could be ahead of the game, right? And those who are able to be comfortable with change, right, and move forward with understanding how to adapt, and understanding how to evolve, and understanding how to grow with change, will be at the forefront and will be at the top.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
No problem.
Thanks for coming to Change Leadership today. I know that you're an exhibitor. Can you just talk briefly about what drew you and your organization to change?
Absolutely. We're very happy to be helping sponsor this event today. We've been in the change management space for a lot of years now. We've been going for a little over 20 years, started in project management, but quickly realized that all projects are change. And really where people were struggling was not managing the projects, but managing the change, managing the people, and helping those folks through that journey. So our focus is around leadership and change management. Hence, we're looking at how people not only work through the change, but also how we as leaders can help our teams work through those changes.
So, based on this morning's session and the wonderful speakers, what advice from this session would you impart to people that you mentor through your organization? What's a key takeaway that you would impart?
Absolutely. So the key takeaway for me is not focus in on the nuancy details. Back out a little, work at that higher level, because the reality is whether we're changing from horse and carriage to an automobile, from the automobile to the airplane, or now to the robots, it's all change. And we as humans go through the change, we go through change in a similar way regardless of those details. And when we get lost in the details, we tend to, I guess panic would probably be the right word for it, and we kind of lose our effectiveness. So how can we remain that level of effectiveness? But the conference is about AI and change, which is kind of really the next big wave, because we're almost looking at human extinction, according to some people's models. But it's really about how are we going to work effectively in that new world, in that new environment, and how are we going to embrace that change, work with it as opposed to fight against it.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much for coming out to the Change Conference today.
Thank you.
What brought you in? What initially brought you in?
Well, my friend Daria volunteered on the committee who created this, the Change Leadership. So, initially supporting her. It's been a great day so far, and I think one of the most interesting things was the last speaker, who was the lady who did the Humber Hospital digitization. She spoke about dealing with the resistors first, and I think that the change management organization, just in general, should start doing that, because generally people deal with the resistors at the end.
Yes, and was that your favorite part today? Or
Yeah.
Did you have another moment that stood out for you?
No, that was actually it. This was a really, really great speech. I liked the panels as well. I thought they were really, really good. The girl from Sobeys, who did the robotization, I probably said that word wrong, of their warehouses, was phenomenal as well. Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Hey again, LinkedIn, it's Nobu Warwick. I'm here at the amazing Change Leadership Conference 2018. We just heard from an amazing speaker, Dr. Copeland at the Mars Discovery District. Now, Dr. Copeland led the transformation of Humber, a great institution, a great hospital here in the GTA, and led it into becoming North America's first fully digital-based hospital, and from my listening to her, also saved energy and costs in the process. Now, Dr. Copeland, you've obviously been part of this incredible enterprise, and congratulations to you. If you were to speak to your younger self, because I have a young audience, and you were to give them 3 tips as to how to overcome mental blocks, or rather even just blocks in the environment, whether those are actors, people, I think you call them resistors, what advice would you give to said younger self? Your top 3.
Hey.
Yes.
So I guess the first thing that I would say is be articulate, just like you are, and speak your mind. Be compassionate, and understand that the reason you're encountering those blocks is probably because people are experiencing fear or shame. And to aggressively attack fear or shame only compounds things. So being able to go in and take the other person's perspective and yet still express your own view in the midst of all that.
Right.
And then finally, I think the biggest thing that I would say is the first step to changing the world is believing that you can.
Right.
And so a lot of our young people, they don't think that they can transform the world, and that's their biggest obstacle to overcome.
It is, and arguably every generation and every person.
Very true.
Thanks so much for your time today, and thanks for speaking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks so much for coming to Change Leadership 2018 AI. What drew you to this conference? Why did you come? Why did you come with your team?
So basically, I've been working in the space of AI for the last 2 years, and I'm now currently in the executive program at Harvard Business School doing AI. And then a lot of things we talk about, it's about change management, like how to explain how leaders should change themselves, renew themselves, in order to really kind of integrate this. So I found this is an excellent topic, and AI is cool, but then unless you know how to integrate this in your organization, technology has its limitations. So at the end of the day, it's people, it's the leadership, and it's the change. So that's why I thought it's very exciting.
So if you were to look into today one case study that you would bring back to your colleagues or classmates at the Harvard Business School as to a successful example of change leadership, which example would you take back to HBS?
So I think Humber River Hospital, it's amazing. It's the full transformation. It's simply just amazing. And then how it's using digital, using robotic. It just in Canada, and then Canada is well known with health system. So I think that's one of the unique things that we can definitely share with the classmates and colleagues.
Beautiful. Well, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.